Welcome, everybody. On your Do Now today, I wanted you to explain to me if you plan on voting when you turn 18. All right, most of you are not going to be 18 for this election, but in the coming years, you will be over 18 and have the opportunity to vote. Do you plan on doing that? When you are legally allowed to vote, do you plan on voting, and why or why not? Why do you have that opinion? And a lot of people will vote no matter what because they say it's their civic duty and they want to participate and they want to influence the government, make sure their voice is heard. Other people don't want to vote. They don't want to take the time to get informed. They don't want to take the time to do the voting. They may not think it matters, anything like that. I mean, people have their opinions. So in the United States, about half the people who can vote actually do. We're usually in like the maybe high 50s. In the last couple elections have been in the high 50s. And those tend to be higher than average, actually. Usually we're down in like the low 50s. As a country, not many people actually vote. In fact, we're much lower than other democracies around the world. They tend to have much higher voter turnout than we do. And those are the last two stats I showed you were presidential elections. We have elections every single year, not just every 4 years. Those ones are significantly lower when there's not a president being decided. So the general trend is that Americans don't really vote. Why not? Why aren't people voting? And we're a democracy, which means the people have power, the people have voice, but that only works if the people choose to. Right? You can't be a successful democracy if people have no voice, people have no way to express themselves. Well, we have ways. People are choosing not to do it. What does that mean for our democracy? Are we successful? Are we really reflecting what the people want if people are choosing not to vote? A lot of people complain about our country. They complain about the politicians. They complain about the laws. They complain about which direction we're going. A lot of complaining, but then people don't show up and vote. How can we change this? I think we all agree that for a country to be successful, you need to reflect the people's opinions. You need to do what the people want. But if they don't vote, we don't know what they want. So how do we get more people to vote? How do we increase our voter turnout? Voter turnout is how many people show up to vote. Well, there's an idea, and some countries use this. It's called compulsory voting. To compel someone to do something is to force them. So forced voting. This is a system that requires people to vote. You have to vote. Now, the way this works is everyone's required to vote. If you don't vote, you get punished in some way. There's some sort of justice received because you did not vote. Now, this can be a severe punishment or a light punishment. There's some countries that do, small fines or you lose certain privileges. Other countries have very serious crimes, very serious punishments, prison sentences for not voting. The question we're going to be asking for the rest of this week is, do you think America should require people to vote? Should Americans follow a compulsory voting system? I want you to develop your own opinion, your own ideas, and eventually get to the point where you can argue whether America should or should not do this. Here's some quick stats about voter turnout. You can see in a lot of the early elections, very few people actually showed up to vote. Well, that was back in, the old days where you might have to ride 20 miles on horseback to get to the polling place so you could actually vote. It's physically very difficult to do it. That not many Americans actually had the legal right to vote. As technology developed, more people got the right to vote. We can see our voter turnout got very high. We were up in the 80%. But for the past, 100 years or so, We've been around like the 50s or 60s. Just a little over half of Americans vote, and that's when the president is being elected. The mid-year, those are even years in between presidential elections, so like 2022, 2026 will be one where you're not picking a president, but you're picking like senators and stuff. You can see we're down in like the 40%. Odd years where we're not electing anything on the national level, well, it might be down in like the 20%. All right, so when it comes time to vote, even the most important, the biggest elections, we're still talking like 50, 60% of people to vote. Now, yesterday we learned about the Electoral College and how we decide who wins. Well, if we took all the people who didn't vote and added them as a candidate, you can see in many states, these brown states, more people chose not to vote than picked either Trump or Biden. In fact, so many people did not vote that the did not vote candidate would have won the election. Right? We talk about like, well, my vote doesn't matter. What's the point? Who cares? Well, you can see like the vast majority of people, had they voted, could have swung the election one way or the other. It could have had a huge impact. Our elections are very close for the past like 20 years. To choose not to vote is going to leave your voice unheard, and it's going to swing the election one way or the other. You can go ahead and grab out your Chromebook. We're going to look at some political cartoons, and I'm going to let you type your responses. Here's our first one. We have a group of people wearing I voted shirts, a group of people wearing blank shirts, but they said, we didn't vote because it won't make a difference. What is this author trying to say? And this author's message is blank. This author is praising or this author is criticizing blank because. Pause this video, take a moment to respond, then you can come back to this video. So in this cartoon, all these people represent Americans, and you can see, we got a proportion of Americans who are voting, and then those who are choosing not to vote. And this author is criticizing this group of people, right? They're saying we're not going to vote because it doesn't make a difference. But if you look at this cartoon, they're clearly over half, right? This is the majority of people in this cartoon. Right? This author is criticizing them, saying, no, if you voted, you would make a difference. You actually have the power. You're just choosing not to do it. You're making an excuse for why you're not voting. It will make a difference because you're such a giant group of people who are choosing not to vote. So this author is criticizing non-voters and their excuses for choosing not to vote. Here we got another cartoon. We got two guys. One guy's got a little pin, a sticker that says, I voted. They give these out to everybody who votes. So they need a little sticker to show off that you're voting. And this guy says, well, I doubled your influence by not voting. What's this author trying to say? What's this author's message? Again, you can pause this video. So again, we have a author criticizing non-voters. All right, this guy voted. He did what he was supposed to. This guy didn't vote. His voice was not heard. Instead, this guy's voice was heard louder than it should be. And this is what's happening in our democracy, is that when people don't vote, those who do get more influence. Right? People are listening to voters more than non-voters, right? Which is why a lot of politicians don't listen to like 18 to 20-year-olds because they don't vote. So their influence doesn't matter. Where like 60-year-olds definitely vote a lot, their influence is greater. Right? They doubled their influence for every voter that doesn't vote. All right, we got a video to watch as a class. Again, you can pause this one. Your activity today is to read some information about compulsory voting, analyze some graphs and cartoons, and you should be always thinking, what's your opinion on this? Do you think we should be using compulsory voting and forcing people to vote? Why or why not?